Welcome to Think of It This Way. I am your host, George Saradakis, Senior Instructional Designer from Studio 7 Communications and self-professed learning junkie. So as a learning junkie, I'm always looking to find new, creative, refreshing ways to help people learn. And after much experimenting and looking around and researching, I came to the conclusion that the best way to be as refreshing and creative as possible is to go completely outside my field and talk to people in other fields entirely. With the caveat being that even though they have different jobs, there's always an element of learning in there. So there's always something that we have in common and something that I can discover as a new idea for myself. And in the process, hopefully I give them new ideas and value to them as well. So that in mind, today I welcome Vivian Doan, owner of Vivian Doan Photography, who specializes in portrait photography. And on top of that, her artistic talents have now extended to quilting, which makes me all the more eager to speak with her so I can learn more about the similarities and difference between these two types of work. Vivian, thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. It's the first time I appear on a podcast, so.
All right, cool. I'll make it as memorable as possible. So before we begin, I should notify you that you've just set the record for non-family guest of this podcast that I've known for the longest time, because we have known each other for 40 years, I believe.
I think so, yes.
Yes. I find this particularly impressive since we're only 25, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
we defy nature.
We, as we were just chatting before we were recording, so I had the pleasure of first meeting Vivian all the way back in grade 1 in primary school, elementary school. And then our paths crossed again at college, at CJEP, at John Abbott College. So as we'll find out, that wasn't exactly by coincidence, because we have some commonalities there about our journeys. Speaking of which, Vivian, the question I ask of everyone, because that's another commonality regardless of jobs, is that I always find it cool to treat every guest like a superhero, you know, like the origins of Wolverine or the Joker, whatever. There have been movies about that. Well, everyone has their story, which, like, I find 99% of the time has defined their career. So I'm sure, like as we were discussing, you have your own journey, and this is one episode where the journey part, which is normally the backdrop, will probably be more in the forefront this time, and I will happily, you know, sort of modify the format to explore this more. So without any further ado, please tell us what has taken you, how the journey has taken you to what we're talking about today, for the most part, the photography and the quilting.
I think, well, I firmly believe that people are born with their innate talents. They're born with their interests, you know, and I think I've always been someone who really liked doing art. And, you know, being born in an Asian family, art is not a career. Art is a hobby. But my mother was very, very into art. She would drive us 3 hours to go to a museum, you know, to check out the Impressionists in Quebec City, for example. We live in Montreal. So she loved art. But I think for her children, having a career in art was not something that she deemed, I don't know, acceptable. I don't know what the right word is. It's art is for other people to create, you know? Mm-hmm. So I went to science. That's where probably health sciences. And I think the target was that I was going to become a doctor, until I took one of the biochemistry classes and couldn't remember one of those biochemical chains with the 14 transformations. And then I sort of switched. And I said, okay, I'm not going to do bio, I'm going to do engineering. Mm-hmm. So I applied to McGill in engineering, and I got accepted in computer engineering. And after 2 years, I just couldn't really get into it. And so I requested a switch with the deans to switch to computer science. Okay. And so I ended up having a career in telecom and computer science. I finished my career as a senior business analyst with a large IT firm. And I have to be honest that I think I was having like philosophical doubts about spending my entire life, all of my working hours sort of being applied in a job that didn't stimulate me. It didn't stimulate my soul. It stimulated me obviously because it was high stress, and it required a lot of knowledge and a lot of work. And I wasn't bad at my job. In fact, I was pretty good, I could say. But I just didn't feel like I could do this for the rest of my life. And I think it created a huge problem for me. And all the while, like at John Abbott, especially, I took 2 art classes. And one of the art classes was a drawing class. And my drawing teacher had said, oh, if you pursued art, I think you could have a nice career. And then I took a photography class and I won the photography contest that year with a little picture. Like it was a picture of a cat, whatever. It's not, I don't know. It won, and it kind of just remained with me. And then when I started traveling, when I started working, I started having money so I could travel. And I really, really enjoyed the photography aspect of traveling, traveling and taking pictures. I had a couple of exhibits, one at a cafe restaurant and one at a violin shop. And, I kind of kept that side going. And then when I was having this like meltdown with my work, I went to go see a coach. And at the time I was only married with no kids. And he said, if there's any time to try something different, it's now. You won't be able to do this when you have like a child or two, you won't be able to have a clear conscience of what you're going to be doing, like trying something out, which could be risky. And you could always go back to what you were doing before. So yeah, I took a leave of absence. I took a burnout leave because I was really burnt out from just the psychological aspect of being kind of torn about what I was doing. And I can't tell you that photography was the first idea that came to mind. It took several months I was on burnout for about 4 months. And in that 4 months of reflection, I came up with the idea of maybe trying. At the time, the market for photographers was not saturated the way it is now. Okay. Yeah, there were like niche photographers who were doing certain things. And my niche was going to be pregnant women and babies and children. So I kind of entered a niche that was there, but didn't have too much competition. And I was able to sort of start that way. And then I quit. I made this plan, and then I wrote my resignation letter because I had to go back to the office to tell them what I was going to do. They had offered me part-time, they'd offered me different type of work, less in the IT department, more in other stuff. But I wasn't interested. I really wanted to just give this a try. Right. And I never went back. I never turned back. And I'm really proud of myself for having done that, because it's really, my family didn't understand. Mm-hmm. Things became difficult with my husband because he was an artist too. So we started like having money issues, because when you're 2 artists living together, it becomes complicated, Okay. But for the most part, we never sank. We were able to just keep things afloat. And I think more importantly is I felt better about what I was doing. I was so happy to do it, and I really love taking pictures. So that was probably around 14 years ago. Yeah, 14, maybe 13 years ago that I quit. Yeah. Huh. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't looked back. It's been quite a journey actually, because, how do you define success, right? What is success? And I think that especially if you're an artist, success could be something as simple as if you're able to have a really nice life and continue to do your art without struggling. I think that's pretty successful. There are so many different levels of success. You could say, well, once I have a Porsche, or once I have, a yacht, or, then I'm successful or whatever. But I think everyone can define success in different ways, and if I can continue to be a photographer and not have to go back to a sort of structured 9-to-5 type work, I think I think it's pretty good. I don't know. So that's how I got there. And, I'm really, really happy to be able to create something that people want to buy, And in this case, it's my service. I'm creating photographs of their families or photographs of them. Um, and I've had the same clients for years and years and years, and I have new clients. And sometimes I have clients who try other photographers and then come back. Last year I had a lot of people come back to me.
What a
It's
compliment.
really nice. Yeah, I mean, every photographer has their own style, right? Every photographer has their own way of working, and the way the pictures look. They also have a different way with making you feel comfortable, their vision for the shoot, um, and I'm just really pleased that people have called me back, people who've tried other people and then come back. And some of my clients, I can see they rotate. They do a studio 1 year, they do me 1 year, then they do another photographer 1 year, and then they kind of come back, every few years. And I'm super happy with that too. They have variety in their stuff, and I get to see them again too. And then I have other clients who every year they call me and we do family shoot, and then you go into their home and you see a whole wall and it's all pictures I've taken of their kids over the years. It's so touching because I'm creating also memories for people. It's not just one thing. It's like not even a snapshot, but just like a beautiful moment where their children are this age, looking really beautiful and happy. Not always easy to do that, right? So there's a skill in that too, to make children look like just joyful, and it's hard work, especially when you have to put them all together in the same picture and they all have to look good. But it's so rewarding, when it happens. And so I think that's part of why I do it, because I'm really trying to capture those beautiful moments for them.
Wow. Man, that's quite a lot to unpack. I'm already learning a few amusing things. You said you were talking about or alluding to Asian culture, but let me tell you, I'm Greek, and the stories are ridiculously similar because we reunited because it sounds like our parents had the exact same thing in mind. My dad at first illusions of me becoming a doctor and healing the poor for free and all this other stuff, and then being told, when I told them, I don't know, blood and guts and then when I told them, actually, no, I got good in math, and we had like a friend of the family say, oh yeah, throw him into like computer engineering. Oh, it's the future there. So I was on that path, and we crisscrossed again because it seemed like, we were strongly influenced by our parents. We ended up, you took health, and we ended up, I remember Martin Chance's Bio 301. That was in pure and applied, but there was a big overlap there.
Yeah, they were the same classes.
Yeah, they were.
Except that there was just like the organic chemistry you may not have taken.
I had to, I was spared of organic chemistry. I stopped at 201. Yeah.
And then there was the biochemistry. So there was the biology and the chemistry together with all those bio chains. Did you take that one?
No.
Okay, that was the one that really changed my life. That was like, I'm not being a doctor because of that one. So my mom's probably deeply distressed because of that class.
Yeah. But I also got to ask, the name just jumped into my mind because my friend Kavork/Kev/Kevin was a photo lab fanatic of the photo lab there back at the time. Was a teacher or the supervisor, whatever. Frankie, was it like the lady that took care of the photo lab?
The lab? I don't remember anybody's name. The fact that you remembered Martin Chance.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I have a thing. Yeah, I have a thing for names here and there. Man, okay. So yeah, and I ended up just like you. I ended up completing the computer engineering degree. So, but
where did you go?
I went to Concordia.
Okay.
Yeah. But I think my degree lasted longer than my time in the field itself.
Really?
Anyway, that's another story. Let's get back to you. So that was quite interesting there. And I also like noted down how there's probably still a lot of leftover pressure. I think things are changing with the generations, but your definition of success versus your parents' definition of success and people who follow their parents with, and it's not really theirs. You're taking on someone else's definition, and then you may make a lot of money, but I've heard a lot of the expression of like, golden handcuffs, and you're stuck and you can't
Yeah.
move. And
Or the gilded cage. That's another one.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's I honestly, I was stuck in that for a while.
Okay.
I had gone to see another type of therapist
Okay.
because I was unhappy at work, and I was having difficulty making sense of it. And we called it the gilded cage at the time.
Mhm.
And he actually had this strange theory about it, which of course I didn't agree with, but he said, it sounds like because you love art so much that you are condemning yourself, not condemning, but you are judging yourself because you're in an IT profession instead of being an artist. And his theory was that if I was just like kinder to myself about the choice that I had made, that maybe I could find a way to be happier as an IT specialist,
Right.
And so I stopped seeing him. But he said and so the thing was, he was like, the money that you're, because it's kind of crazy how your mind works, right? So the money that I was making in IT, I considered it like dirty money,
Yeah.
like blood money. It wasn't dirty, it was blood
Yes.
money.
Yes.
It was kind of like painful to make the money because I wasn't happy. And so I was just kind of spending it. So in a way it was, it wasn't really doing anything for me, right? It was like just, so we would go out, we would, me and my friends would go out, we would go drinking or, whatever. I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I started having the philosophical debates about my career, right? So, yeah, and he said, no, you should just see your job as a way to earn money so that you can have a nice life. So it's like, it's a really interesting theory around money, right? The amount of money that you make and your feelings about your job and everything. And so the other coach said that there are so many people who come in to see him for job dissatisfaction.
Mhm.
I mean, people are just, it's just a common thread, right? And he said one of the holy grails of life is to find a job where you're happy with the money that you make, and you're just overall happy, like you
Yeah.
love going to work. I don't know how many people, maybe today is more so, we could probably find more people because this is the age of the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But in the past, in my father's, my parents' generation, I don't know how many people you would be able to just single out and go, do you love your job? Are you happy? She's like, well, I just do my job because I've been doing it for the past 25 years. And
Oh yeah.
I don't really question it, whatever.
Yeah, there's a sense of more of a complacency and maybe even an unconsciousness, and you're touching upon things I can go hours on that, but I won't, of course. But like I've taken courses and upon course about our belief systems, and you might have the belief money is the root of all evil and so forth. So it seemed like repelled by the money you were making, like you were literally repelled, like
it wasn't evil, it was I had worked so hard for it. No, it was deserved, but it was just coming in from doing something I really didn't like.
Yeah.
And so I was like, oh, you know what? I'm gonna go have some sushi tonight, and I'm gonna spend $100. Like it wasn't like precious to me in that sense. Whereas now, to make $100 is like it's more work for me now than before, because it's a service that I'm providing, and it's not like this stable job where you get a paycheck every 2 weeks, right? So I see it differently. And in a way, it's great because it kind of allows for a more minimalist, pared down life, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You don't need all this excess to be happy. You don't need like 5 million pieces of clothing to make you happy. But when you're deeply unhappy, that's when you start, entering that kind of terrible game of like,
oh yeah,
I'm going to buy all this stuff because I'm unhappy. And then you realize actually in the end, it doesn't make you happy, right?
I just went through this with my last guest, how he was like a big hotshot retailer salesperson. And at one point he just, his spirit crashed and said, this is all shallow and meaningless. So back to square one. And yeah, I shared with you weeks ago that diagram, Venn diagram, that some people's version of purpose is the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what you can get paid for, and what the world needs. So
Yeah, well,
you didn't
I don't know
love
if the
your.
world needs photography.
I think
but
in a way it does. Like you're from looking at your portfolio, there's a whole bunch of smiles being generated and everything, and love going around. So why wouldn't the world need that?
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's a luxury. I admit that, like, what I do, not everybody can afford to pay for it,
Yeah.
but I mean, it makes them happy. And I mean, I love having beautiful pictures of my own kid, so I think it's just something that people will cherish later. So I'm really happy to do it.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm trying to think where to go next. But one of the things that I was telling you before about is in terms of the learning aspect of it, when you were back at John Abbott and picking up the trade and everything, this is more artistic than what I'm doing on the surface, and yet I aspire to bring some of that into my job as well. Um,
Mhm.
so again, I'm branching off in the questions. I'll stick to one. So as I was saying before we recorded here, so how much of the learning path and the mastery photography is learning the techniques and being like a student in the traditional sense, and how much of it do you think is your gift, your God-given birthright, and how much of it is a passion where it might not be a gift at first, but you're so passionate about it that you persist, and then you develop the
Mhm.
abilities because of that.
Well, I can tell you that, so I took the photography, it's 101 with Maher, who was like notoriously tough. And I found his assignments actually challenging, like he was like, okay, go out and photograph a farm in the middle of winter. I
Huh.
didn't do well in that assignment, because it was really, really hard.
Yeah.
Um, uh, I learned like darkroom techniques with him, and we learned about composition and stuff like that. Um, I'm not sure if what I learned there is exactly what I'm using today. You know what I mean? I think that what I'm doing today is a combination of intuition.
Okay.
So um, how to, like there's so many different courses, like how to pose people, lighting, composition, like all sorts of different things. Um, for me, like when I take pictures of people, first of all, one of the most important things is where you're shooting. And that's not something that you necessarily can learn about. It's just something that you learn with experience versus learning academically. So like I know when I go to a park or when I go to Old Montreal, a time of day where buildings are located or where shrubbery is located or where trees are located can create a certain effect with the time of day, with the lighting that the sun is offering me, that the shade is offering me, for example, that can create certain things. And that's all something that I've really learned through hours and hours and hours of shooting.
Okay.
Hours and hours and hours of making mistakes,
Yeah.
of not steering my clients toward the right time of day, not insisting that they change locations. A photo shoot is not what people think it is, which is just taking pictures. It's really, there's a lot of planning involved. And if you set all the conditions up properly, you can have really beautiful results. And if you don't take the time to set up the conditions, you can have just standard average results like anybody else, and I think for me, that is half of like what I do. And the other half of what I do is, and it's funny because I just bought masterclass and I want to listen to Annie Leibovitz's masterclass about portraiture. And she said something kind of interesting in the promo, which I don't even remember what it was, but it was about making your subject feel comfortable. And she was saying, I don't agree with that or something like that. And don't paraphrase me. I think it's just, maybe it might not be that exactly, but I think a huge part of what I do is meeting people that I haven't met ever and quickly making them feel comfortable enough to let down that barrier that they have of being uncomfortable, because it really is uncomfortable when you have a giant camera in your face. I'm uncomfortable when I have a camera in front of my face. So to make them feel really comfortable to the point where they let go of their inhibitions and they show you like who they really are, you know? And one of the wonderful compliments that people have given me is that sometimes I make people look better than they actually look in real life because I see them in a different way, you know? My friend's wife told me that many times. She's like, oh my God, look at this picture of so-and-so. She looks so amazing. And I mean, it's not that to say that she doesn't look amazing in real life, but just, it's her. Like, I don't do anything. Like, I don't Photoshop the picture so the person looks different. I just shoot them in a way where the light is super flattering and they feel really uninhibited, you know, where they can just feel relaxed. And then they can look really nice and really amazing. I mean, I mostly work with women. I can tell you that. I think the style of photography that I do for portraits mostly appeals to women. Women call me a lot, or mothers with their families and stuff like that. So I guess because I'm a woman, I have this affinity towards making a picture. It's really interesting. A photographer on Facebook asked for like 4 keywords. She's like, how would you describe your photography in 4 keywords, you know? And so, you know, I was like, that's really interesting. I think I would describe my photography as like organic, pretty, natural, and dreamy, you know? And so those types of adjectives are more suitable for women, let's say. I like shooting men too, but like that's mostly for corporate stuff. Like when a company calls me, and says we want to do headshots, and they have like a whole team, you know. But yeah, because I have this kind of way of making it look soft and pretty for in the picture through all the camera settings. And I'm sorry, I'm just going on and on because you're asking me.
Yeah.
All of this for me is learned through experience.
Okay.
I can admit though that because I'm mostly self-taught, I do have always this feeling like, oh, if I had gone to the Dawson program in commercial photography, maybe I would have a bigger or better career or whatever. But, you know, I think ultimately what Malcolm Gladwell was talking about, the 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
If you have your 10,000 hours, you become an expert at something. And I really have my 10,000 hours, you know, like I have more confidence now that all the shooting that I've done, and I've done so much shooting, has gotten me to this point, you know, where I can create this stuff for people. And I'm really happy and I'm really proud, you know. And of course, there are things that I don't do. Like I can't, for example, I would love to do street photography. I cannot figure it out, you know. It's like, it's a different skill set. It's a different way of seeing the world. So I have my way of seeing the world as a photographer. And, you know, my neighbor, who's not even a photographer, he's like an amateur photographer. He takes the most amazing street photography.
Yeah.
You know? And so I guess, you know, we all have our domains in even in our fields, you know. I'm not an expert on weddings. That's another one. Weddings I find really stressful and really challenging because you have to create artistic moments out of very mundane things, like getting ready, putting clothing on, giving a speech, walking down the aisle. You know, the pressure is on to create these beautiful artistic images for hours and hours and hours. And I've shot about 25 to 30 weddings.
Okay.
And there's just so much going on in here to make sure that every angle, shooting through the plants to create the artistic thing,
Yeah.
or which angle, which lens to use for this angle. It's just so much math sometimes and creativity. And maybe because I always want everything to be so beautiful and perfect, I found it like overwhelming. So I sort of stopped doing weddings probably in 2012, 2013. I shoot really small weddings now. If someone says I'm doing something really intimate, I'm doing an elopement, it's just the two of us with,
Yeah.
I have no problems because that's like portraiture for me. But if it's like event, like crazy event where it just, there's so much pressure to be artistic, like for me, it's crazy, but I just leave that to other people. I think there's so many great wedding photographers in the city, and I'm so happy to refer them,
Yes, it seems to me like it's if I'm trying to connect dots here as best I can with what I'm gathering and what I've known from you in the past, but it's as if the weddings, they seem to creep from authenticity to contrivance. If I don't know, if a mother's putting on the bride's necklace, it wouldn't be like, oh, let's just put it on, you happen to be there. It's like, okay, stop, pretend you're putting it on. Okay, it's my like it seems like there's that much more pageantry, and as soon as you're getting less authentic and natural, you're getting more artificial, and then you lose that authenticity that you seem to be tapping into to be at your best, right? Am I
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about weddings.
Yeah.
If you're a good wedding photographer, you don't have to ask them to do it. If you're really good,
Okay.
you're watching. You're
Yeah,
watching
the observer.
and you're creating the moment through your observation.
Yes.
But if you miss the moment, you have to ask them to do it again,
Yeah.
right? But you are right. Weddings are very repetitive. So even though every bride thinks that they're creating their own unique version of a wedding, after you've done like a good 25 weddings, they all become very, very similar,
Mhm.
So I think you really need to love doing it. And some of my friends are so good. They are so good at creating those moments, at making it look spontaneous and artistic and something that could easily be in a magazine. I'm super in awe of them. I don't, I don't have that. And so for me, I'm so happy staying with what I'm doing and creating these beautiful portraits that are, like I said, organic and dreamy and pretty and natural. That is my thing. That I think that's why people call me. And I'm so happy to do it.
When people come back to you,
Mhm.
I wanted to pick at this to see, some people inevitably have the adventurous thing, and good on them. Oh, I want to see what else is out there, or let's be honest, maybe you'll be like, I want to see if I can save $50 or something. So what do they tell you when they come back? It's like, oh, Vivian, I didn't realize that you had this gift that I took for granted of X, of the lighting, of the smile, of the way you set up. Like, what do they tell you when those who return?
Those who return, actually, I don't talk about it.
Oh, okay.
I
So
don't
welcome
say,
back, and that's it.
no, not even welcome back. They call me and they're like, can we do pictures this year? And I'm like, yes, we can do pictures. And I know deep down they were with somebody else last year
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
saw
yeah.
the pictures pass by. Or I don't know, it's weird. I don't actually talk about it. I'm just happy that they've come back,
Okay, fair enough.
And so in my mind, they've come back because they like what I did for them. They come back because maybe the other photographer, the price point wasn't okay, or maybe, who knows why people come back. But it's funny because sometimes people use other photographers, and then when I comment on the pictures, they feel guilty. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry, we hired someone else. And yes, I confess that I'm kind of sad they called somebody else. But at the same time, we live in a consumer society where there are so many options, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I can shop at Amazon one day and then I can shop at the local shop the next day. And, what are the reasons, right? Maybe one is for price. Maybe one was, because I want to, I mean, who knows, right? It could be anything. So yes, I actually don't bring it up. Like, I don't bring it up because I don't want to make them feel bad on the spot either. And if they bring it up with me, which is rare because they probably feel bad too that they use somebody else.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't think, yeah, it's kind of like an unsaid, you know,
Just swept under the rug. Okay, that's
a little bit. Yeah.
okay. Well, yeah, it's true that there's I guess, a mutual understanding that we've got a million choices out there, and they felt curious, and you just take it as a compliment that they come back. Okay.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure.
So, I mean, you already touched upon this part. I don't know. I'll dig to see if there's anything more to it. About, I was gonna say, like, from a, I'm coming in from the training world, right? So I'm like, how do you train people to be natural? But from what you're answering is like, so, it's not really training or doing something to them. It's more of an undoing, really. So you're not explicitly saying, turn your head this, da da da, and look at the camera and smile and cock your head 40%.
Well, there is a bit of that.
There is a
Yes.
bit of okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But you
at
do
the
it in a way that they're not viewing it like as something super awkward, you know?
yeah. So
Um,
before it even begins with the technicalities, like I was just mentioning, you take them aside for a 5-minute conversation on the intention of the session and what they want to convey.
no,
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 not
not even.
okay.
It's more, well, before you even meet in person,
Yeah.
you've either had a phone call or at least like email, right? Where they're describing what they're looking for.
Okay.
And so you have an understanding. And if it's something like a portrait shoot for work, or just having for LinkedIn and having a bunch of different, or for branding, for example, we've been talking on the phone already, you know. So we've like, they've created a plan. There's a whole preparation that they have to do, you know, on their end. So there's like what they're going to wear, like where are we going to do it, what would be the best. So we've already interacted to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
They already feel me. They feel me as a person, and they feel comfortable with me. And I think this part here, and I don't want to brag or anything, but I think that I'm very easygoing when you meet me. You know, I'm not like a big, tall, domineering, you know, I'm just like this little old me kind of thing. And I'm
Okay.
not, I don't think I'm intimidating. I think that I'm very down to earth.
Yeah.
Especially with kids. I love kids.
Yeah.
So people say I'm pretty good with kids. And I think it's because I just love, I mean, I work with kids so much, so I love them. I guess they just don't feel uncomfortable around me, you know? And all throughout the shoot, we're talking, you know, we're talking about parenting, or if it's for a woman who's doing branding for something, we're talking about her business. You know, there's like this kind of repartee going on where they're just talking about themselves, they're opening up. And then as we're discussing, I'm posing them. So sometimes it's very clear that I'm posing them. I'll tell them exactly how to stand. And then if they're too stiff, you know, I'll just like, no, just, okay, just relax, jump around, and then come, you know. So like, it depends on how comfortable the person is, how natural they are at posing in front of the camera. Some are super natural. They just go right in front of the camera, no inhibitions. And others are super awkward. So that's like, so you have to really break them in through your I guess your photographer's charm or something. I don't think that's the right word, but just I have been shot once by a photographer, a male photographer, and I don't know if male or female makes a difference, but he was barking orders at me. And so those pictures were just horrible. And I never want to, I didn't pay him. I don't think I paid him, but it was just an experience that I had. And I was so uncomfortable, you know? So I think there's like this whole skill. This is a skill, but I don't know how it's learned. It's a skill where, you know, so I guess in online learning, when you meet people, you just draw them in through your charm, you know, you make them just feel like they are welcome. You're so happy to have them. And you're having a lot of fun. Like one thing that I'm told often at the beginning of a shoot is I'm really terrible in pictures. I'm not photogenic.
Yeah.
I'm really intimidated by this whole process. These are things that I'm told. And then at the end of the shoot, they often say, well, that wasn't so bad. That was actually pretty fun. You made it really comfortable. It really wasn't like I thought it would be, you know? And so, I mean, that's a compliment to just me, just the experience with me. And I'm not saying it works with everybody, you know, but I'm really happy when I do my shoots, and I think my clients are, for the most part, really happy. It's very, very rare that I have someone who's unhappy with the shoot, and they're unhappy not because, you know, of the way I was, but I think they're unhappy because of the way they look. Like, for example, a very beautiful woman who is perhaps in her mid 40s could see that her face is starting to age, and could say, I'm really unhappy because I can see so many wrinkles. I don't really look like this, you know? And that's a tough one, you know, because the camera picked up on, you know, the camera's not inventing it either, right? The camera's not, but it's just that they're not used to seeing themselves like that way. But this is very rare, but you know, it's rare that someone has ended a shoot saying, I really didn't like you. It's only the kids. The kids are like, it's time for you to go home. Bye.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's a whole conversation. It's a whole bubble. It's a whole atmosphere you're creating. And like sometimes in training, it's as if, okay, put on your training hat. You know, we're gonna put something on you, but it's not so much that you're putting on this mask for photography as much as you're taking off the mask that they had already, and they didn't even realize they had, and you're like unveiling the beauty that was there all along that they didn't have access to.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. This
Yeah.
is the thing. Did you see that meme on the internet where there's a photographer that walks around and takes a picture of someone and then tells them they're beautiful and then takes a picture of them? The face that they have after they told that they're attractive is just beautiful, you know? And I think, I mean, I don't know how it happens, but I think that if you find a way to make someone feel beautiful or attractive, it makes them really happy, you know? So a part of what I do is I show them pictures of the shoot as it's going along.
Okay, that's cool.
Make sure that they're happy with just like the setting and how it's looking, where we're going. And then they see it and then they get really excited. They're like, oh, I'm so happy. It's so great. You know,
them feedback loops as I'd call them in, so kind of like in engineering as well, but feedback loops to say, oh, you're doing great so far. And you just keep up the enthusiasm.
Yeah. I mean, there is a bit of that, you know, that kind of stereotype of the photographer, beautiful, great, awesome, snap, you know, like that kind of fashion. Yes, go ahead, go. Yeah. When you listen to me shooting, I'm pretty sure you'll hear some of that. And it's coming out, it's not on purpose. It's just coming out like, oh, you know, I'll be like, oh, that's beautiful. Okay, no, stay there. Okay. Oh, this is really nice, you know, because I'm getting excited too. I'm like, okay,
genuinely,
just turn your head a little bit more, you know, like, yes, okay, like that. Yes, exactly. You know, like you can sense my enthusiasm as it's going, but I think they can feel too that it's going well, you know? So yeah, I mean, Yusuf Karshu's like that great Canadian photographer. He was talking about how his great portraits are taken while he's talking to them, you know, and then in the minute of reflection, like one of his portraits of, let's say, Winston Churchill or something, he'll just snap the shot, you know. So like every photographer has their own charm about how they're going to charm their subject into creating the expression that they're looking for, you know?
Yeah.
In that sense. So I don't know how this all applies to online learning in a sense, but it's like, I think if you have this just welcoming feeling with your clients and they feel immediately part of your circle, um, welcomed and accepted, and you're all going to do this together as a team, you know, like I'm not the only one making these pictures. They are part of these pictures, you know, their participation, their presence, their willingness is all part of it. You know, if you're having a bad day, it's not the right day to take a picture. Like, it's just not. You're not going to be present.
Although you could endeavor to turn their spirits around and, you know, oh, think of
You could, but yeah.
I mean, it's not the essential part of your job, but I guess it's like an add-on that it would it raise your value even more. You're probably like part psychologist in here just to
Maybe.
motivation speaker. Yeah.
I wouldn't say that I was a psychologist, but definitely you could call me an entertainer of sorts, right? Because you have to be, especially with children, you have to be entertaining. Because there's no way, you know, I bring puppets when I shoot.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I do. It's just their eyes, their faces, they're distracted. You have to bring them back to the lens, you know. So I mean, my puppets are like barking and farting and I don't know, screaming, and it's just crazy. Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
You don't need puppets though.
Well, you know, I'm taking these ideas and trying to find an analog. You know, I'm trying to distill the principles of them and then re-engineer them, like de-engineer, deconstruct, and then re-engineer in my world. So when you say, oh, an online learning could be warm and so forth, yeah, if the online learning is what we're doing over Zoom with a virtual classroom, they call it, sure. Most of what I do is e-learning, where it's like, you know, when I'm narrating, let's say it's like George's voice in a cat, and just click through some slides and drag and drop and answer some multiple choice questions and click on submit and all that. So I'm like, okay, great. How do I, you know, convey that without actually being there? It's just there's just a recording of myself. So I'm not there live. It's asynchronous, as they said. But how do I play this up? So you know, in the older days, it was very didactic. It was very like airline pilot type delivery. Welcome to this e-learning module on compliance. So you will learn. And I come in, I'm like, this is boring the ever-living crap out of me. I couldn't possibly imagine myself sitting here. I'd want to flip the bird to the computer because I find it disingenuous and condescending and inauthentic. So when I'm chosen to narrate, you know, like, welcome to this e-learning mod, I try to, you know, just through the vibe, I'm not there for real, but I'm trying to, like, you know, it's like a virtual experience, really. I'm trying to still convey the enthusiasm and you know, try to write in some jokes and sometimes and things like that.
Great. I think the jokes are good. That's good.
Yeah, you get put and my feedback loop to make the parallels. You were saying, oh, look at this stuff already. My feedback loops traditionally are just like, okay, here's some what they call it. It calls it formative evaluation. At the end of a section, answer some questions, and you know, you're given feedback right away if you're doing right or wrong and whatever. And pardon me. So I'm constrained, but I'm trying to think of ways to creative ways to go around that. So I'm not there live, but I'm still bottling my essence, you know, George number 5. When you open, oh, well, geez, this is cool. The guy's not here, but this, you know, it's for the sake of mass deployment and all that, but he's enthusiastic and I can add little, like, it's, I want to have puppets, but I may have like extra videos on the side if people need them. So if you look hard enough, everything is analogous to everything else, really. Like how you do anything is how you do everything and all that. And that's why, like, when I talk to people outside my field, like, yeah, okay, I'm not snapping pictures, but I am trying to put them in the right mood. You know, there's a classical trope of e-learn designers, instructional designers, is like, okay, what are you going to get out of this training? You know, you will learn to bam, 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 and all these benefits that appeal to the learner. Like, we're not just force feeding you. This is for you. You're going to do better at your job, and by extension, you're going to help the company, and just try to paint a big picture that appeals to them.
For sure. Well, I think that for that kind of stuff too, it's a lot of different things, right? It's your personality,
Yeah.
it's how you speak, right? It's how you present it. And also I think it's visually how you're presenting your slides or whatever it is that you're using as a instructional
Well, we
material.
use a lot of stock photos and stuff, so that's what I'm saying. Geez, what extra insights would I get just to heighten the experience? And yeah, this is interesting because it circles around what you were saying before, or one of your coaches like, oh, learn to be at peace with the job that makes you miserable. But I don't totally disagree. I don't agree with that. I could see where he would be coming from. I can argue of half of what he's trying to get at, in that I can say, oh man, if I left e-learning the way it was when I first got there, didactic, and here's a bunch of text on the screen and whatever, I'd hit the job. But I preach often to bring the fun. So it's like, this is the state of the industry, whatever. I don't like it. I'm like this. Does that mean that I have to find something that's perfectly aligned to me? Oh, no, I think I can come in here and impose me onto the field.
Mhm.
So doing, innovate it and make it much more interesting. So
For sure.
yeah, so I started throwing in jokes. There was an e-learning that thankfully we had a very progressive client as well. Instead of being like slides, it's like, I want something new. All right, let's make a story. Let's make a story out of diabetes about someone that had it and went into denial, and then he had to learn to accept it. And he found a mentor who had been through it, and it's this whole, and it's we use like comic book like stock photos from Getty or whatever. And I'm in it. My boss is in it. We're cartoon characters. We're arguing with each other. We're animating the characters a little bit like South Park. At one point, I throw in some jokes. And it went from a very drab topic, if it were done the old way, to like, I think the most entertaining thing I've ever done to date.
That's great.
Yeah. So
that could become your signature, like
that's what I aspire to. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, I do that. And I'm thinking, okay, what's next? And yeah, just snapping out of just being doing a desk job. That's fine too. But I was getting a little, I don't know. I was just feeling like, okay, I'm doing all this cool stuff hiding behind the desk, so to speak, while I've got this nice, big 6'2" frame, baritone voice and whatever, and it's not coming through. And I like explaining things, And but the live gigs were going down, especially these days, of course. So how do I cultivate that? And I'm like, I want to do a podcast. We wanted to do more marketing stuff. Like, let me do some social stuff. I'm doing improv and whatever. Anyway, let me just practice coming out. It's very not only niche and professional, but it's also cathartic, coming from the super repressed little shy kid, shy little chubby kid that just knew how to go home and do his homework all the time. So you're lining up personal personal fulfillment with professional innovation. And when you get all that lined up, I mean, it's like, hey, win-win, cool,
For sure. Although I think for what you're doing, it's like you need to be like a Tony Robbins kind of person, someone really, really magnetic and where you can communicate ideas of any kind and have people retain them just through your charm, like just through the way that you communicate those ideas that are so memorable, like through humor, through dynamic presentation, through slides that are not just static, boring slides, but through images that people can remember. I think all of that is a skill, which I don't know, like, is it something learned, or is it something, can you get better at it? I think for sure you can get better at it, but it's funny because you talk about being shy. And I was an only child for 10 years. So in a way, I had nobody to talk to. And I was super shy too. I used to hide behind my parents' legs and stuff like that, like when we saw people. And I think I had like this kind of epiphany when I was about 6 or 7, that if I continued to be shy like this, I wouldn't be able to play with anybody, and I forced myself to snap out of it. I was like, okay, I'm gonna ring the doorbells of all the people in the neighborhood and see if they want to play with me, you
Oh,
know?
wow. That's pretty
Yeah.
conscious of you for 6 or 7. That's amazing.
Yeah, maybe 8, because I think it was
Okay.
when I moved
Oh,
into
then I take it back.
that. I do remember the shift as well, from being shy to forcing myself to stop being shy, you know? And I think it changed my life for the better, you know what I mean? Um, so what it like after the pandemic, what like would you be in person instructional, like being instructional in person in companies, or it's still online e-learning?
I've done on in person. They call it instructor led training. I've done that as well. But even this is like years ago, even pre pandemic, the trend just for the economy of things is why pay someone to show up 5, 10 times to teach something and have to pay for the overhead and all the expanding the transportation, all that, when again you get Georgia in a can. Here's the file, click on it, play it 5,000 times for all I care, and at a fraction of the price. So there has to be the right context. I know just recently people are starting to come back, and there is a in-person conference going on with one of our clients, and they do want to be able to use adult learning principles and everything to shape this into more than just an information fest where it's like in one ear out the next because it's overload and whatever. There's like a whole neuroscientific way to go about it. But yeah, especially now. I mean, we went virtual. We're working from home forever now. We decided to move away from the office permanently. So the world, the way it's going, yeah, it's definitely trending towards online most of the time. But
Mhm.
there where possible, yeah, there's some e-learning stuff, and there's some virtual instructor-led training too, as if we would use Zoom for the sake of a formal class. I've done it myself. I do Zoom prov now. When I return to improv, it's not in Montreal Improv for now. All that's closed down, but for a fraction of the price, they reincarnated themselves, and we do improv through Zoom. And it's like, yeah, like 90% of the value is there because okay, you can't be on stage and whatever, but virtually you get like 90% of the experience. So
Wow, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I didn't know about that. That's
Innovation,
cool.
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
necessity is the mother of invention, right? So we follow,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
So before we run out of time, I want to respect your time here. We touched upon the quilting. So I was like, okay, how did she go from how did you venture into quilting, and what? I mean, definitely have some ideas and theories, but let you say, what does quilting have that photography hasn't, and why, and then
Okay.
and so
Sure. I can It's so funny, this story. It's not funny, but it's just 4 years ago, one of my friends, Suzanne Paquette, she said, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book about quilting. I'm like, oh wow. And she said, and I'd like you to photograph it for me.
ah
Yeah. So she had secured a publishing deal with CNT Publishing, which is a crafts publisher in the States. And her concept was creating memory quilts with dearly loved clothing from either someone who is deceased or someone, a baby, where you want to remember their you kept their clothes and you want to do something with them aside from keeping all their clothes in a box somewhere.
yeah, okay.
So she had like I think 12 projects in this book, and I didn't even have a sewing machine at
Huh.
this point. In fact, in home ec, um, we had to create like a zipped pouch and like a tote bag. And as I was making it, my grandmother was living with us at the time, and my grandmother was an avid sewer. She looked at my project and she laughed. And she actually finished my projects for me because she was just like, I mean, whatever. So yes, I kind of cheated and submitted my grandmother's she finished my stuff for me because she fixed it. So I guess in my mind, I'd had this idea that I wasn't very good at sewing. It's just not something for me. So long story short, I spent a good part of a year photographing these beautiful quilts that my friend had designed and created for the book. And I mean, we spent a lot of time together, just like creating the scene, staging, you know what I mean? Like it's planning, she planned out the shoots, we went on location. So it was this huge, huge thing. And I looked at the quilts and I was like, God, I wish I could do this. You know what I mean? It was just like this kind of mysterious skill and looked very, very complicated. Something that I could never do. I think in my mind, it was something that I was never going to be able to do. And yeah, and the book came out and it's really beautiful. And I was so proud. And so I'm still not a quilter at the time that the book comes out and it's printed and everything. And then 2019, Christmas 2019, when you're with someone for quite a long time, I've been with my boyfriend now for 5 years. He's like, what do you want for Christmas this year? You know? And I'm like, I don't know. God, I mean, we're also at the age where when we want something, you kind of just get it, right?
Yeah.
So there's, so I'm like, I don't know, maybe if you give me a sewing machine. I don't have a sewing machine. Maybe you can get me a sewing machine,
Yeah.
So he got me a sewing machine, and circumstances had it that he couldn't give it to me at Christmas because he ended up being in France with his family.
Okay.
And so when he came back in January of 2020, he gave it to me. And then I'm like, I don't know what to make, like, what should I do with this? You know what I mean? It's still this like mysterious thing. Like, what do I do with this machine? So I'm like, maybe I'll make a pillowcase, So we went to buy like one piece of fabric and I made a pillowcase for a cushion on my bed. And then Valentine's Day was coming up and I was like, you know what? I should make the smallest quilt in my friend's book. It's just, winter is a quiet season for me because I do mostly outdoor stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe I'll try a quilt from Suzanne's book. I think it's so fitting that I did that. So Fabien gave me like some of his old socks and shirts, like just old clothes, right? Because it's a memory quilt book, right? So I made him a memory quilt. And I was bitten by the bug. Cutting up little small pieces of fabric and sewing them together and then creating like this kind of quilted sandwich, of fabric with batting in it. I immediately wanted to make another one. And so I bought more fabric. And as you can see behind me, you see, I now have a lot of fabric.
Oh man.
I have a lot.
Yeah.
Because in quilting, you need lots of little pieces, right, to put together. So over the course of 2020, during the pandemic, I bought a lot of fabric. I also made a lot of masks for healthcare workers and stuff like that we gave away. So while I was with that this little group of women that we were with, I made 300 masks that we gave away. So now I think I'm a pretty good sewer. Yes, I love it now. So here, hold on, let me just, that one on the wall there.
Profile picture. I was wondering if that was, that's fun.
Yeah, I made that this winter.
Yeah.
And there's one at my parents' country house that I'm finishing as well by hand. So I'm quilting that one by hand. But I love the creative process of quilting. It's not just sewing pieces of fabric together. Right. It's color coordination. It's pattern coordination. It's also the quilt pattern of the cut pieces and how you sew them together. There's a lot of skill involved when you're doing curved pieces, which I'm not yet super there yet.
Yeah.
But I just find that it's creative in a different way. And I mean, the funny part is that I really, really love it. And when I tell people I love quilting, I feel like kind of grandma like, because they look at me like I'm kind of crazy. Like quilting, you mean, and they're picturing like a little old grandma like quilting.
I'm not all that surprised. I at one point had three, back when we were in the building, of course, we had three women in the team, and we're still a relatively small agency, sitting on the couch at lunchtime, and they're all crocheting. Like, what in the hell is going on here? Like, what? this has made a big comeback. I mean, I do have the grandmother that made all the little doilies this big, and we have like a treasure chest of doilies. But I picked up something here. See if you agree with it. To do a little bit of research for this. Some woman said, I love quilting because it sits at the intersection of creativity, comfort, and possibility. I love how the kaleidoscopic combinations of colors and textures trigger a festival of fireworks in my brain.
I don't know if fireworks are going off in my brain, but I am quite obsessed.
Yeah.
I have bought so many quilt patterns, thinking in my mind, I'm going to make them all, you know?
Yeah.
But it is a really long process. Honestly, I think, okay, so what's really cool about quilting is it's not an old lady's pastime. If you actually look at all of the quilters on Instagram,
Yeah.
they are like, you can have pattern designers who are 25 years old.
Yeah.
Like, and followed by thousands of people. And they are earning their living selling quilt patterns. So you can't really make money making quilts and selling them because nobody is willing to pay you for the time that you put into creating a quilt. Is hours and hours and hours of meticulous cutting and sewing and piecing and quilting and a lot of material, which is also quite expensive.
Yeah.
So I think when you're not doing it, you have no idea how expensive it can be. But buying fabric is expensive. It's just to give you an example, Club Tissu, which is like a major fabric retailer here in Montreal, 1 meter of quilting cotton, if you're not a member of their store, could be easily $24.
1 meter.
So 1 meter
Yes.
by 44 inches of fabric. So the standard bolt of fabric is between 42 to 44 inches wide. And they sell them by the meter. Most of the time they're sold by the yard, but because we're in Canada, they sell it by the meter. Okay. Yeah. So if you can imagine, that's very expensive.
Yeah.
That's like a high-end price, but because I'm a member, I usually pay around $18 a meter. Okay, so you get like 25% off or whatever. Okay. So it's pretty expensive. And I hope my mom's not listening because she'll but so if you're making like a tiny lap quilt, that's about 50 by 50, that's like a couple of $100 just worth of fabric and thread and and batting. Batting costs $65 for like a package of batting.
Yeah.
And so people have come to the conclusion that if you're making a quilt for somebody, you're just giving it to them. You give it to them for free and they have no clue how much it costs, and it's just a gift. But if you want them to pay for it and you say, well, this quilt is worth like $800, they're just like, no, oh my God, that's insane. Yeah. Or like a quilt for your bed, like a memory quilt, let's say you're making a memory quilt, it's like minimum $1,000. But just to give you an example, like long arm quilters, so they're the people with the large machines who do the quilting for you, because our little machines are really hard to quilt. You got to roll your quilt up and then push it through, and it's crazy. So you got this machine that just kind of goes dig, 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 and then your quilt is laid out, but you can't afford a machine like that. It's like $40,000 or something, right? Okay. So you've got long arm quilters that you send your quilt to, you bring it there and you choose your pattern and they'll do it for you. Standard price for a bed, like a double size quilt or a queen size quilt, is like $300 for them to just quilt your sandwich. Yeah. So if you factor that price into your $1,000 cost of your quilt, and then you take the cost of the fabric for a queen size quilt, which is like $200-300, you're already at $600. And so the profit margin is $400, but the profit is your time.
Yeah.
And the time is like, we're not talking like 10 hours here. We're talking like 100 hours, You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, imagine it's like $4 an hour or something like that. So these young, amazing, and of all ages, pattern designers, they're making money because they're selling, I don't know if they're making a lot of money, but they're selling their patterns for between $10 and $20 a pattern. And you've got thousands of people buying them if your quilt is popular, if your quilt design is popular, so it's really cute. Like, I mean, I think my dream as I move towards retirement is maybe selling some quilt patterns, but you have to be like an Instagram influencer type person to sell a lot of quilt patterns. It's becoming that it's becoming that nowadays too. You know what I mean? Like it's
As you're maintaining your skills in photography with masterclass, I'm sure there's some quilting courses in there as well. I keep getting, I know of masterclass, but the one that I kept getting in my inbox was Creative Live. And it's like for
Creative Live.
$150 a year, all this photography stuff. Well, it's a big mishmash of photography and writing and
Mhm.
storytelling and all that. I'm like, that's a pretty good deal. It's a question of time, making the time to
It is
absorb
a
it.
question of time.
Yeah.
I haven't fully watched the Annie Leibovitz thing yet. I just really think I need to really sit down but there's also like Craftsy, have you heard of Crafty and Domestika? Those are for, like your crochet knitters.
Hmm.
They have so many different instructional videos on how to craft, like how to do needle punch, how to do all sorts of things, how to create a beautiful cake.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's great. There's like a whole wealth of instructional video for people to do this stuff. Mastercraft does not have quilting. Like, Mastercraft is, I think, more oriented towards I think more generalized skills like writing,
Yeah.
people who like writing.
Try Creative Live. I didn't explicitly look for quilting, but there might someone somewhere might have it. There's definitely photography. So maybe by extension, they're like, yeah, you know what, this is gaining popularity. Let's cover that as well. Yeah.
Maybe. I think, when I listen to like quilting podcasts,
Mhm.
most of the time, the special guests, they all have videos on Craftsy, you
Oh,
know,
okay.
or I didn't hear Domestika, but Domestika is one that's coming through my feed as well, because I subscribe to Craftsy and I haven't even watched a video yet either. It's so crazy.
Mhm.
You subscribe to all these services and you don't even have time to watch them.
Yeah, that's like the bane of my existence, let me tell you. And I have to learn to let go and be a little more choosy and I just want to, go buffet on all the learning out there. And it doesn't quite work out.
I think it
Uh,
also depends on exactly what you're talking about. The charm and the dynamism, is that a word, of the host, right? The person who is
yeah.
hosting your video or your instruction. And I can say that, like, sometimes on YouTube, I'm just looking something up and I'm like, oh my God, this person, I can't even,
All is
and
dishwater.
I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
trying, I'm just
Well,
gonna find another instructional video because I can't deal with the
I can't
person.
take them. Well, yeah, that's how I felt a lot with my industry stuff. Number one, they regurgitate the same ideas I've known for 8 years, and number two, the person, you could feel their awkwardness or at least their amateurness, and you're like, no, no,
Or they're just not meant for this, or
yeah,
it's just not the right job for them. They just don't have the right charisma.
you absolutely need some of that. Yes, yes,
Yeah, unfortunately, it's just like, but in a way, it's like every job has the right personality profile. Certain personalities can be doctors, right? Certain personalities can be, I don't know, like photographers,
yeah, yeah.
you know?
I've gotten into that. I've done my Myers-Briggs test and all that, and I'm one of them, introvert, intuitive, thinker, judger, or something like that. So,
Okay.
but by the same token, I mean, who I am right now in front of this camera isn't who I was, and it's as if, to go back to the client conversation, I had to consciously gain awareness of my own masks and say, no, look, even when I was at my shyest, I still like to joke around and whatever. I was just doing it with a very, very small clique of friends, and then slowly I'm like, maybe other people, and quite like you. So not too surprisingly, more similarities between us. So you can change a little, you can change a lot, but you got to really want it as well. And you really, in the end, you got to check in with yourself and see where you want to go and put up with a lot of mistakes and so forth. Like you were saying, there was a cool thing I saw on the internet as saying it's like the difference between a master and a beginner is that a master has failed more times than a beginner has even tried. So yeah, go through that
Yes.
desert of pain as long as you want it,
Yes.
as long as you really want it in the end, and to put up with it, and one day you'll reach the other side.
But for sure,
Yeah,
totally. It's through all of these mistakes or these errors in calculations of, whatever, camera stuff, right?
yeah,
Or location, or it's just through all of that that you become who you are, which is that you know how to do something because you tried all those other things, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, I mean, that's the genius of it all, you know? I can tell you that I have totally been insulted to my face in photo shoots
Mm.
by people who think that it's the camera that's doing the work.
Okay, yeah.
They say, oh, you have a really nice camera. Your camera is taking such great pictures.
Oh man, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I hear that twice a year, maybe, but it's like this erroneous
Impression.
belief,
Yeah.
right? That if you have a nice camera, you will be producing nice pictures. And I have always been, I'm pretty old school, and I love this idea that you could take beautiful pictures with the cheapest camera. It's just how you use it. It's
With your phone these days, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the phones are definitely getting better and better, and I mean, maybe they'll make us obsolete. Who knows, right? But I mean, what I'm trying to say more like, you can take an old Pentax, an old like manual Pentax, and take the most beautiful pictures, from the thrift shop. You don't have to have like a $5,000 camera to take beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
And I have so much respect for that, like it's not about the gear, it's about you creating that moment. So in a sense, with your videos, it's not because you have a better, let's say, camera or better slide creator, or you know what I mean, that you're going to be better. It's you, right? You are going to plan out your thing in your style, in your flavor, that is just going to make it great, versus someone else who thinks they could just buy this and that software and be able to do it.
Yeah. Well, they'll just have to learn the hard way. Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. That's awesome. So yeah, thank you for all of that. There's a lot to port over in the end. I'll think about more, but just the fact that putting people at ease, and we're doing that already, but going out of your way to make put people in the right state. I think in the end, with all this stuff about making money but at a job you hate, it doesn't mean much. I think we're all chasing a feeling in the end. Even people that want money is for that feeling of importance. So I think if you get people in the right state of mind, I guess the right state of heart, anything is possible. And I think as you devote yourself to the arts, you're more aware of that, and you work more closely with that kind of principle than the average. So that's pretty
I
cool.
hope so. I
Yeah.
mean, I can tell you that even though, let's say my income dropped by 50%, I can say that my happiness increased by 100%.
Yeah, that's the end currency. People mistake, money for the final currency, but at the end of the day, even if they think otherwise, like spiritually, if you will, the feelings are the end currency. So.
I think so. I don't think that, I think this thing is spreading around, like this concept that like they asked people who were dying on their deathbed, like some of their regrets,
Yeah.
And a lot of the time their regrets were that they gave so many hours to a job that was meaningless, And so you have to sort of create value with all of your hours of the day, not just the hours after work where you're tired. It didn't make sense to me, but I think it all has to do with upbringing. And like when I had a discussion with my father about exactly this, he had so much difficulty understanding about happiness. He's like, we don't question that. You just go to work and you do what's right.
Yeah.
And I was like philosophically, I can't do that anymore, and it was such a hard moment, but they've accepted it now, they've accepted, but my mom did jab me the other day about my income and stuff again, and I'm just like, whatever. Okay, I think she's just worried about me, we're still their children, even though we're the age that we are, which I won't reveal.
I said 25 at the beginning, so we'll keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So that said, let's do your mom a favor here. So if people want to get in touch with you for photography or to look at any of your work online or reach out, like where can they find you to?
They can find me on Instagram.
Okay.
So it's Vivian Doan Photography for my photography account, but I mostly post stuff about my personal life.
Mhm.
And for the quilting, it's sew dot miss miss.viv. And that's
Oh,
all my quilting. So I separated them because I
yeah.
felt like it was getting a bit confusing for people to see me quilting. And they could just give me a call too. I mean, it's on my website, viviandoan.com.
Perfect.
And you can see examples of my work.
You know, you're actually inspiring me. I'm not that I'm gonna start quilting, but I think I'm gonna try to make a memory quilt online because I use icons so much that I'm like, if I put this big rectangle on screen, you know, with like, you know, 3, 4 columns, 6, 7, 8 rows, it's like every icon represents a piece of the course I just gave them. And maybe that way
Oh,
it makes
that's
for a nice
great.
mnemonic or something, you know. So I'm gonna experiment with
Yes,
that. Yeah.
I love that. And then you
All
can
right.
start making patterns with your icons,
There you go. The
like
next
quilt
generation.
patterns.
Yeah. So
That
maybe
sounds
I'll run a few
cool.
by you when I do it. Hey, look what you made me do. Look what you inspired me to do. So
So fun. I would love to see that.
all right, I'll keep in touch.
Thanks.
So that is basically it. I'm gonna respect your time, and also, yeah, on my end, I'm often so selfless to forget about me. So yeah, anyone, you know, usually what the usual YouTube spiel is. If you enjoyed this, subscribe, like, comment. If you even want to be a guest, you know, just write to me. Easy to find on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and all that. And yeah, we'll get in touch and see what's possible. So, Vivian, thank you so much for your time. This was a pleasure. You know, this is like this is so fun for me as well. A side benefit of this is like playing This Is Your Life because I get to like cousins and people from work and people from 3 jobs ago and so it was really a kick to be able to share this time with you after so many years.
I know. I'm so humbled that you asked me to do this.
Oh,
I'm really happy to share my experience, and I hope that your viewers know that you know, eventually your dreams catch up to you and you get to do something you love. So that's great.
absolutely. All right, folks. So that's a wrap for this week's episode. Thank you once again, and see you next time.